Do you remember a time in One Piece when Gol D Roger wasn't just a character, but an actual myth? A time when being the Pirate King meant you were basically a god, with a power level so insane you couldn't even process it. For years, this guy was the absolute peak, the final boss of the entire series. His name was everything. If you grew up watching this, you know Roger wasn't a person. He was a literal force of nature. But as the world of One Piece got bigger and crazier, and the new world showed up with its insane monsters and emperors, did that legend start to feel different? This isn't about the Pirate King getting weaker. It's about how our idea of the old generation was completely shattered by the insane power of the new guys. It's that weird feeling you get when the gods from your childhood turn out to be way more human than you ever thought possible. In the beginning, Gol D Roger wasn't a character. He was an idea. He was a voice on an execution platform whose last words were so powerful, they kicked off a global age of piracy. Think about that. This guy's influence was so insane that his death was the single most important event in modern history. We didn't know his power because we saw it. We knew it because everyone was terrified of him. We didn't need to see him fight. We saw the chaos he left behind. In Logtown, Smoker wasn't talking about some strong pirate. He talked about the aura Roger left behind, a feeling so real it was still on the execution stand. And this hype machine worked for his entire generation. When we first actually met Monkey D. Garp in Water 7, he wasn't introduced by his rank. He was introduced as the Marine who cornered the Pirate King. That was his entire flex. His whole character was built on fighting Roger, which shot both of them into a completely different league. They were two sides of the same legendary coin. And then there was Edward Newgate, Whitebeard. The man literally called the strongest man in the world. The story made it 100% clear. This was the only guy alive who could go toe-to-toe with the Pirate King. Their power wasn't normal, it was elemental. When we finally saw them clash in a flashback, their haki didn't just hit, it literally split the sky in half. That wasn't a fight, it was a cataclysm. The mystique of this generation was cranked to 1,000 because we almost never saw them. Roger was already dead. Garp and Whitebeard only showed up for huge, world-ending events. Every word they said felt like it carried the weight of history. They felt untouchable because, for the longest time, they were. They were the power ceiling. We believed, with 100% certainty, that they were the absolute peak. So, when did we realize these gods could actually bleed? It wasn't one big moment, but a slow realization that the world was way bigger, and the monsters way scarier than we ever knew. The first real cracks in the myth were the Marine admirals. In Sabaody, we watched Admiral Kizaru move at the speed of light, casually destroying half of the worst generation like he was bored. At Marineford, we saw Aokiji freeze literal tsunamis, and Akainu drop magma fists that melted the entire battlefield. This wasn't some old legend. This was real-time, world-ending power, and it was terrifying. For the first time, we had a real benchmark for what top tier actually looked like today. Then came Marineford, the event that really made the legends feel human. We finally saw Whitebeard go all out, and he was the monster we were promised. He was creating earthquakes and tsunamis with enough raw power to literally sink Marine headquarters. But we also saw something else. An old man, hooked up to medical machines, fighting a terminal illness. He was betrayed by his own son. He was a father fighting to save his kid. His death was one of the most legendary moments in the entire series. He died standing up, taking hundreds of wounds without ever running away. But he did die. The strongest man in the world was mortal. His fall, as amazing as it was the first undeniable proof that the old guard, with all their power, could be taken down. The myth of them being invincible was shattered. As we launched into the new world, this just got crazier. The other emperors, Big Mom and Kaido, weren't just stories. They were active rulers with massive territories and monster crews. We saw Kaido's indestructibility and Big Mom's soul-stealing powers up close. They were the new ceiling. The conversation went from, can we ever be as strong as Roger, to how do we survive the current emperors? That shift from worshipping the past to trying to survive the present is something every longtime fan has felt. It's part of the journey. If you're feeling this, do me a huge favor and destroy that like button and subscribe for more. The biggest shift, though, came when we finally saw Roger's full story through Odin's flashback. This wasn't a legend being retold. This was us living his final journey right alongside him. And the man we met was nothing like the untouchable god from the stories. We saw a captain who got into goofy fights with Whitebeard, who literally got on his knees to beg another man to join his crew, and who was battling a terminal illness, racing against time to achieve his dream. He wasn't some distant, all-powerful deity. He was a deeply emotional and determined man on a deadline. The flashback showed us the man who loved his crew like family, the adventurer who laughed in the face of the world's greatest secrets, and, more importantly, the man whose will was so strong, it changed the world forever. His true legacy was never just about strength. It was about his freedom, his words, and the new era he started. Roger feels different now, not because he's less impressive, but because we finally see the full, insane scope of the world he conquered and the darkness he fought against. The untouchable god has become a deeply human hero, and that just makes his legend even more powerful. He's no longer just the destination. He's a milestone on a journey that is way crazier than we could have ever imagined. And just when we thought we understood the new power ceiling, Luffy went Gear 5, and the entire scale was thrown out the window. This isn't just a power-up. It's the awakening of the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika, and it's basically cartoon physics brought to life. Luffy can now literally do whatever he imagines, turning the ground to rubber, growing into a giant, and taking catastrophic hits like it's a joke. He has the power of the Sun God, a warrior of liberation who fights with pure freedom and joy. This brings up the ultimate question for fans today. Could current Luffy, with his reality-bending Toon Force, smack the old generation's asses? Could Gear 5 Luffy go toe-to-toe with a prime Whitebeard or even Gol D Roger himself? The old legends were defined by their god-tier haki, but Luffy now has that, plus a power that defies the very laws of their world. And to make things even crazier, we now know there's a final boss hiding in the shadows. Imu, the secret king of the world. This is the being who secretly rules from the empty throne, who the five elders bow to, and who is potentially an immortal being from the Void Century. Imu's existence suggests a level of power that might dwarf everyone we've ever seen, Roger included. So where does that leave the legends we grew up with? Is the new generation, with Luffy as its ridiculous peak and Imu as its terrifying shadow, just that much stronger? Or could the old guards still compete? So how has your view of Gol D Roger changed over the years? Was there one moment that made you see him or the whole old generation in a new light? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Thanks for watching.